There is a world hidden beneath the surface of everything you see, a realm not made of shadows, but of invisible forces. These forces do not ask for permission. They simply guide your choices, shape your emotions, and build the illusions you believe to be truth. You are not as free as you think. Every fear you feel, every person you trust, every product you crave, none of it is truly yours. Behind it all lies the dark side of human psychology, and it is always watching. Have you ever wondered why you hesitate before making a decision? Why a certain color, a smell, a word can change your entire mood without warning? This is not random. It is design. A quiet war is being waged for your mind, and most do not even realize it. But today you will. This is not just information. It is forbidden knowledge. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The human mind is the most powerful weapon on earth, yet it is also the most vulnerable. For centuries, rulers, marketers, cult leaders, and con artists have all understood a single terrifying truth. If you can control what someone believes, you can control everything they do. But this control rarely looks like chains or threats. It looks like smiles. It sounds like compliments. It feels like love, trust, and safety. That is why it works so well. Psychology was never just about understanding the mind. It has always been about influencing it. And in the wrong hands, that influence becomes manipulation. There are individuals, corporations, even governments that have mastered the psychological playbook, silently bending millions of minds to their will, one subtle trick at a time. Take, for instance, the infamous Milgram experiment from the 1960s. In this study, participants were told to administer electric shocks to another person simply because an authority figure told them to. Most complied, even when they believed the shocks were lethal. Why? Because humans are wired to obey. They are wired to trust figures in lab coats, to follow social norms, to conform when the group expects it. And this wiring, though natural, is also dangerous. It means our morality can be overridden by psychological pressure. It means we are programmable. Now consider the Stanford prison experiment. Volunteers were randomly assigned to be either prisoners or guards in a simulated prison environment. Within days, the guards became cruel, abusive, and tyrannical, while the prisoners began to break psychologically. The environment had transformed ordinary people into monsters and victims. It was not fake. It was not exaggerated. It was a raw demonstration of how fragile the human identity can be when placed under invisible influence. You see, there is a hidden framework behind human behavior, a skeleton that most people never notice. From the language we use, to the brands we prefer, to the people we idolize, everything is filtered through psychological biases that operate beneath our awareness. It is not that we are stupid, it is that we are predictable, and once you become predictable, you become controllable. But why is this information not common knowledge? Why are we not taught these psychological traps in school? Why is emotional manipulation not treated like warfare? The answer is simple. Those in power benefit from your ignorance. If the masses understood how easy it is to shape thought, resistance would grow, awareness would spread, and the old systems, the ones built on control, would collapse. That is why this knowledge is hidden behind academic papers, buried in obscure studies, or presented in watered-down self-help cliches. But today, we are not going to water it down. You deserve the truth in its rawest, most dangerous form. This video is not just about psychology. It is about awakening, about giving you the eyes to see what has always been there, lurking behind the smiles, the ads, the social cues. By the end of this journey, you will understand the dark mechanics that influence your thoughts. You will begin to notice patterns in everyday life that once passed unnoticed. And perhaps, for the first time, you will take control of your own mind. But beware, once you enter this world, there is no going back. The comfort of ignorance will be gone. What replaces it is awareness, power, and a responsibility that most will never accept. Let us now begin unraveling the truth, piece by piece. There is a reason why most people never question the reality they are handed. The illusion is comfortable, predictable, safe. But the truth is unsettling. It whispers that your thoughts are not entirely your own, that your fears have been planted and your desires carefully designed. And the most disturbing part? You were never supposed to notice. Human psychology is not just complex, it is exploitable. And for decades, this exploitability has been quietly harvested by those who understand the system better than you ever could. While you went about your life thinking you were making your own choices, forces beneath the surface were making them for you. Let us begin with a simple but profound fact. Your brain is a pattern-seeking machine. It is wired to find order, meaning, and certainty, even where none exists. This is why you see faces in clouds, hear your name in noise, or assume someone is angry just because they frown. Your brain fills in the gaps, but this survival instinct also creates blind spots. Enter the cognitive biases, mental shortcuts that help us make decisions quickly but often irrationally. These biases are not glitches. They are features of the human mind. And when weaponized, they become tools of manipulation. Take the confirmation bias, for example. You seek out information that confirms what you already believe, and you ignore anything that challenges it. This This is why fake news spreads faster than truth, because it is tailored to validate the emotions people already feel. You are not looking for facts, you are looking for comfort, and someone out there is feeding it to you. Or consider the authority bias. People naturally obey those they perceive as credible or powerful. This is not just about uniforms or titles. It is about presence. When someone speaks with confidence, wears the right clothes, and controls the room, they do not need to prove their truth. People believe it because it feels true. That is how entire nations have followed charismatic leaders into war. That is how cults are born. You might think you are immune, but the more certain you are of your immunity, the more vulnerable you become, because the most effective manipulation is the kind that disguises itself as your own idea. The advertising industry understood this long ago. They stopped selling products. Instead, they began selling identities. You are not buying a shoe, you are buying a lifestyle. You are not choosing a phone, you are declaring your worth. Every brand, every logo, every jingle is carefully engineered to associate itself with deep psychological needs: status, acceptance, attractiveness, safety. Psychologist Robert Cialdini called these weapons of influence. They include scarcity, only a few left; reciprocity, get a free gift; social proof, everyone is using it; and commitment, you already said yes once. These tools work because they bypass critical thinking. They press on your emotional levers, making you say yes before your mind has even caught up. Now ask yourself, how often have you said yes without knowing why? History is full of examples where psychological manipulation shaped the fate of millions. During World War II, propaganda posters did not just inform, they conditioned. Repetition, fear-mongering, and emotionally charged symbols trained citizens to think a certain way. These methods were not random, they were calculated, and they worked. Even today, political campaigns rely more on emotional priming than factual argument. The color of a tie, the music before a speech, the phrasing of a slogan, these are not stylistic choices. They are psychological weapons. So why is this truth hidden? Because it threatens control. If people began to see through these tactics, systems of power would crumble. Entire industries would collapse. Propaganda would lose its grip. Compliance would falter. And those who once whispered commands into the ears of millions would fall silent. That is why the truth is buried beneath distraction. You are fed entertainment, drama, outrage, anything to keep your attention away from the machinery behind the curtain. Because the longer you stare at the show, the less you see the strings. And yet, now you are beginning to see them. You are beginning to recognize the subtle manipulations in your daily life. The phrasing of a notification, the placement of a product, the fake urgency in an email, the pressure to smile when you want to scream, the expectations placed on you since birth. It is not paranoia, it is awareness. You were never taught this because an aware mind cannot be easily controlled. But awareness is a burden. It forces you to question everything. It strips away the comfort of normal. It isolates you from the crowd, but it also frees you. The hidden truth is simple. You are more influenced than you know, but now you are beginning to wake up, and that is the first step toward taking your mind back. Now that you know the truth has always been hidden, the next question arises: how is it being used right now? The answer is chilling. Dark psychology is not just theory. It is happening around you every day, in advertisements, in politics, in relationships, in the quiet corridors of power where manipulation thrives under the mask of persuasion. Let us begin with marketing, a trillion-dollar industry that exists solely to influence behavior. Every time you walk into a store, scroll through your feed, or watch a commercial, you are stepping into a psychological battlefield. But it is not chaotic. It is engineered. There is a reason why grocery stores put essentials like milk and bread at the back. It forces you to walk past everything else first, increasing the chance you will pick up things you did not plan to buy. There is a reason why sale prices are marked in red, why $4.99 feels cheaper than $5, and why products are labeled limited edition. These are not marketing tricks. These are cognitive ambushes. The goal is not to inform, it is to bypass your rational mind and trigger instinctual reaction. These reactions are fast, emotional, and often unconscious, and they are deliberately cultivated by those who understand your psychological wiring better than you do. Ever heard of the foot in the door technique? It begins with a small request, something easy to agree to. Once you comply, the manipulator follows up with a larger request. Because you already said yes, you are more likely to agree again, even if the second ask is far more demanding. This technique is used everywhere, in fundraising, sales pitches, even abusive relationships. Then there is the door-in-the-face technique, the opposite approach. Start with an absurdly large request, get rejected, then follow up with something smaller. The second request now feels reasonable by comparison, even though you would have rejected it if it came first. This tactic is used in salary negotiations, upselling, even by politicians introducing extreme policies. And do not think manipulation ends with money or sales. In politics, dark psychology is not just common, it is strategy. Language is weaponized. Words are carefully chosen to provoke fear or loyalty. Terrorist versus freedom fighter. Illegal immigrant versus asylum seeker. These labels are not neutral. They shape public perception instantly. Then comes moral reframing, a tactic where manipulators present their agenda as morally righteous while painting the opposition as evil or corrupt. This shuts down rational debate and taps into emotional loyalty. When people believe they are fighting for morality, they will do almost anything and justify it. In relationships, manipulation becomes more personal and more dangerous. Consider gaslighting, a psychological tactic where the manipulator makes you question your reality. They deny your experiences, twist your memories, and make you feel crazy for noticing the abuse. Over time, the victim becomes dependent on the manipulator for validation. Their self-trust is eroded, their confidence vanishes, and their mind is no longer theirs. Then there is love bombing, a tactic where someone showers you with praise, affection, and gifts to win your trust quickly. But once you are emotionally invested, the behavior flips. The affection turns cold, the attention is withheld, and just like that, you begin chasing the high again, blaming yourself for the shift. It is a cycle of control masked as affection, and the scariest part, it works. Dark psychology thrives in emotional environments where people are lonely, desperate, grieving, or fearful. In those states, logic weakens, memory distorts, people become susceptible. This is why cult leaders target the broken, why scam artists prey on the elderly, why toxic partners isolate their victims before taking control. It is not a coincidence. It is design. Social media has only amplified this manipulation. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook are built on psychological reinforcement loops. Every like, every comment, every notification is designed to stimulate dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. But these platforms do not just reward behavior, they shape it. The infinite scroll is not accidental. It is engineered to keep you trapped, numbing your sense of time. The algorithms do not just show you what you like, they feed you what will keep you emotionally reactive. Outrage, envy, fear. These emotions increase engagement, and engagement is profit. The platforms are not neutral, they are psychological casinos, and you are not the customer, you are the product. But perhaps the most disturbing application of dark psychology is found in mass control, when entire populations are manipulated for power. In 1933, Adolf Hitler's regime used a tactic called the big lie, the idea that if a falsehood is outrageous enough and repeated constantly, people will start to believe it simply because they cannot imagine someone lying so boldly. And it worked. Millions followed, millions died, and history became a lesson too few remember. In modern times, dark psychology appears more sophisticated but no less dangerous. Data harvesting allows corporations and political entities to build psychological profiles of you. Your likes, your clicks, your pauses, all tracked to predict your behavior and influence your future choices. You are being studied more than you realize. They do not need to control your body. They only need to control your choices. And if they can influence your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, then they already own you. This is the reality most people refuse to see, because seeing it means admitting how deeply we have been shaped, how easily we can be used, and how fragile our freedom truly is. But knowledge is a weapon, and now it is in your hands. Power does not always wear a crown or carry a title. In fact, the most influential people in the world rarely raise their voices or show their weapons. True power is silent. It flows through influence, perception, and psychological leverage. And once you understand how this power works, you will never see the world the same way again. Let us begin with a simple observation. Those who control perception control reality. Perception is the lens through which people interpret everything. If you can shape that lens through language, body language, emotion, or suggestion, you can make people see what you want them to see. That is why the most powerful leaders are not just charismatic, they are psychologically fluent. They know how to tap into fear, hope, and identity without ever appearing forceful. Consider nonverbal dominance. In a room full of people, the most powerful person is not always the loudest. It is often the one who takes up the most space, moves with stillness, and holds unwavering eye contact. These micro behaviors send subconscious signals of status. Others begin to defer, imitate, or yield without even realizing it. This is not mystical. It is psychological. And it works because the human brain is wired to recognize and respond to dominance cues. The same principle applies in conversations. A powerful person does not rush to fill silence. They let others speak first. They control the pace. They ask questions that direct focus away from themselves and toward the other person. Why? Because in doing so, they maintain control of the emotional temperature in the room. Power also lies in framing, the ability to define the context of a situation before anyone else can. For example, a business leader may walk into a crisis and call it an opportunity opportunity for innovation. That framing influences how everyone else feels about the problem. In politics, a skilled speaker can label a protest as a threat to public safety or a fight for freedom, depending on what outcome they desire. The facts remain the same, but the meaning is altered. This is how the powerful shape narratives, by controlling the frame through which the world is seen. Another core tactic is scarcity. The rarer something feels, the more valuable it becomes. People of influence know this. That is why they do not make themselves too available. They do not explain everything. They create mystery. This mystery becomes magnetism, because in human psychology, what is withheld becomes desired. Now let us speak of language, the most underestimated weapon in the hands of the powerful. Language can be used to lead, to soothe, to provoke, to destroy. The way you phrase a command, a question, or even a compliment can shift someone's emotional state instantly. Consider the difference between, "Why did you do that? Help me understand your thinking." Both questions address the same situation, but the second one disarms the ego, invites cooperation, and preserves influence. High-status individuals speak differently. They avoid filler words. They pause before responding. They use precise vocabulary, not to impress, but to reduce ambiguity. They ask more questions than they answer, because the one who asks questions controls the conversation. But let us go deeper. There is a darker side to power, one built not on leadership, but psychological domination. In this realm, control is exerted through manipulation, coercion, and engineered dependency. One classic tactic is intermittent reinforcement, the same technique used in gambling. When rewards are unpredictable, people become more addicted. This is used in abusive relationships, where moments of affection are scattered unpredictably between cruelty. It is also used in social media, where the next like or notification might arrive at any moment, keeping you hooked. Another powerful strategy is mirroring, subtly imitating the behavior, speech, or posture of someone else to build rapport. It triggers trust. The brain subconsciously thinks, "They are like me." Con artists and salespeople often use this without you noticing. It is not about truth, it is about familiarity, and familiarity breeds persuasion. Then there is emotional anchoring. This technique involves linking a specific emotion to a person, product, or idea. For instance, if a political leader always appears during moments of national tragedy, they become emotionally anchored to strength and reassurance. If a brand always uses nostalgia and joy in its ads, that emotion becomes associated with the product. And once that link is formed, it becomes extremely difficult to separate. But here is the turning point. You can learn these techniques too, not to manipulate others, but to protect yourself and to develop your own influence. Let us begin with presence. The most powerful people walk into a room as if they belong there. You can begin training this by adjusting posture, slowing your movements, and breathing deeper. These physical cues signal calm control to others and to your own mind. Then comes language. Practice removing uncertain phrases from your speech. "I think," "maybe," "kind of." Replace them with clarity. "I believe," "this is what I know." Let us move forward with this. Over time, people will begin to mirror your certainty. Emotional control is next. Power belongs to those who are unshakable. Train yourself to remain calm under pressure. Learn to delay reactions. Speak slowly when others are escalating. It creates a psychological contrast. People trust stability and fear it when they cannot control it. Finally, learn to spot the tactics being used on you. Is someone flooding you with praise too quickly? Are they pushing a false sense of urgency? Are they reframing events to serve their narrative? Do not respond immediately. Pause, analyze, decide. Because power at its core is the ability to choose your response when others are still reacting. True power is not loud, it is not cruel, it does not beg or chase, it observes, it speaks with precision, and it listens more than it speaks. You were born into a world where influence is currency. Now you know the language. Use it wisely. What if you could rewrite the way your mind responds to fear, pressure, and manipulation? What if you could become immune to the tactics that once controlled you? That is not a fantasy. It is the next step. Once you understand how the mind is programmed, you can begin to reprogram it. And when you do, you stop being the target and become the master. Every belief you hold, every fear that governs you, every trigger that controls your actions, these were not born with you. They were installed through childhood experiences, repeated messages, social pressures, and emotional conditioning. That means they can also be uninstalled. The process begins with one word: awareness. Awareness is the first line of defense. Without it, the most dangerous psychological attacks will pass through you undetected, just like a computer with no firewall. You must begin observing your mind like an outsider. Watch your thoughts, question your reactions, study your beliefs. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Who benefits if I continue to think this way? Is this fear mine, or was it planted? Once you learn to interrupt your automatic thinking, you weaken the grip of manipulation. Now let us introduce a powerful concept: cognitive reframing. Cognitive reframing is the practice of taking a disempowering thought and seeing it from a new perspective. manipulative. For example, instead of thinking, I failed, so I am worthless, you reframe it to, I failed, which means I had the courage to try, and now I know more than before. This is not about denial, it is about shifting ownership. You are no longer at the mercy of your interpretations. You are shaping them consciously. Let us take it deeper. Most people live under the illusion that emotions just happen. But emotions are not random. They are responses to thoughts. If you can identify and alter the thought, the emotional state will change as a result. Imagine someone insults you. Your automatic response might be anger. But if you pause and think, this insult reveals more about them than about me, your anger fades. You did not repress it. You transformed it. This is emotional alchemy, and it is the mark of a reprogrammed mind. Another key practice is mental conditioning through repetition. Just as the mind was programmed through repeated exposure to negativity, fear, or doubt, it can be rewired through consistent, intentional input. Write down the truths you want to believe. Speak them aloud every day, not because they are magically true, but because repetition creates reality in the subconscious mind. Studies show that affirmations, visualization, and identity-based self-talk can shift neural pathways over time. Instead of saying, I hope I can be confident, say, I am building the mindset of a confident person. Small change, massive impact. Now let us talk about emotional boundaries. Reprogramming the mind also means protecting your energy from toxic influences. That includes people who drain you, media that manipulates you, and environments that keep you small. You must become ruthless about your inputs, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. This means saying no without guilt, taking space when needed, removing yourself from conversations that go nowhere, choosing silence over shallow validation. The powerful understand this. Attention is energy. What you focus on expands. What you feed grows. What you ignore starves. And perhaps most importantly, start practicing emotional detachment. This does not mean becoming cold or numb. It means refusing to let every situation hijack your peace. Detachment is the ability to witness chaos without becoming it, to observe without absorbing, to love without losing yourself. This one skill alone will shield you from 90% of manipulation. But reprogramming is not only about defense, it is also about evolution. You must start living from intentional identity. Ask yourself, who do I want to become? Not just in words, but in practice. Visualize that version of you. What do they say yes to? What do they avoid? How do they walk, speak, breathe, lead? Then start acting as if you are already that person. This is not pretending. This is pre-installing the software. Your brain, through the mechanism of neuroplasticity, begins to follow the behavior you repeat. This is how habits form, how identities shift, and how power is reclaimed. Let us be clear. This is not a quick fix. You are re-engineering a machine that has been conditioned for years. There will be resistance. There will be doubt. But that is part of the transformation. Growth is painful because comfort is addictive, but discomfort is the price of freedom. Here is a practical roadmap you can start using today. 1. Journal your triggers. Whenever you feel anxious, manipulated, or reactive, write it down. What happened? What did you feel? What was the thought behind the feeling? 2. Track your inputs. Audit your media, conversations, and environments. What patterns do you notice? What makes you feel powerful? What drains you? 3. Practice mental rewrites. Each time a disempowering thought appears, pause and ask, what else could this mean? Then choose the interpretation that aligns with your growth. 4. Build identity rituals. Create small daily actions that reinforce the version of you that you are becoming. This could be posture, breath work, morning silence, assertive speech, anything that builds psychological momentum. 5. Choose discomfort on purpose. Each day, do one small thing that scares you. Speak when you want to hide. Set a boundary. Ask the hard question. These moments retrain your nervous system to associate discomfort with power, not danger. Because the truth is, you were never powerless. You were just conditioned to believe you were. Now you are undoing the lie. Reprogramming your mind is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you what to fear, what to follow, and who to be. You do not need permission. You only need awareness and action. As you sit here reading these words, perhaps a feeling has started to rise within you. It might be disbelief at first. Could it really be possible that everything you believed about yourself, your world, and your limits was designed to keep you confined? Or perhaps it's a growing sense of unease, a realization that you've been living in an illusion, one so deeply ingrained that it took this moment to shake you awake. But whatever the feeling is, let it wash over you because the truth is undeniable. The life you've been living, the choices you've made, the fears that have paralyzed you, they were never truly yours. You were programmed. You were shaped by forces beyond your control, by stories told to you, by expectations placed upon you, by systems designed to keep you small, silent, and compliant. And the worst part? You never even realized it was happening, but now you do. The moment of clarity you've been searching for has arrived, and it's both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because once you acknowledge the extent to which you've been controlled, it's impossible to unsee it. Every ad, every political political campaign, every carefully crafted message you've ever absorbed, each one has been a thread in the tapestry of manipulation. But here's where the true power lies. Now that you know, you have the key to escape it. It is not some mystical, distant revelation that requires years of study or deep meditation. It's the realization that you, right now, have the ability to reclaim your mind. You hold the power to unhook yourself from the strings that have been pulled by unseen hands. You can break free from the chains of psychological programming and become the person you were always meant to be. But here's the catch. The moment you step into your true power, you will be tested. The forces that have controlled you will not simply vanish. They will fight to keep you tethered to the old ways. The system does not want you free, but the only way forward is through the fire. The path to liberation is never smooth. It is filled with resistance, doubt, and moments where you question everything you've learned. But this is not a reason to turn back. This is your moment of transformation. When you learn to control your own mind, you are not simply rejecting the world's influence. You are learning to reshape reality itself. You are reclaiming the ability to choose, the ability to act with intention, not out of fear or habit. And the most mind-blowing realization of all, you will no longer be a victim of manipulation. You will be a master of it, not in a way that controls or hurts others, but in a way that allows you to create the life you desire, unencumbered by the noise, distractions, and lies that have held you captive for so long. It's the ultimate form of freedom. This knowledge, this power, this awakening, it changes everything. The moment you decide to step into it, you will begin to see the world differently. People will no longer manipulate you. Situations will no longer control you, and you will no longer feel powerless in the face of challenges. You will become the master of your own destiny. The illusion will shatter, and with it, the world you thought you knew will be replaced by something new, something you control. It will not be easy, but it will be worth it. Because in the end, the most powerful thing you can ever own is not a title, not a position, and certainly not a material possession. It is your mind. And once you truly own your mind, you will find that you are unstoppable. As we reach the end of this journey together, it's important to pause and reflect on the profound transformation that has taken place within you. What we've discussed here today is not just knowledge, it is a catalyst for change. The truth you've uncovered is not a fleeting revelation, but a foundation upon which you can now build your future. You've learned that the world around you is filled with unseen forces designed to manipulate your thoughts, control your actions, and dictate your beliefs. But now you also know that you are not powerless. The tools we've explored, awareness, reprogramming, and understanding the psychology of power, are your weapons in a battle for your own mind. The most powerful thing in this world is not external, it is the mind. And once you take control of your thoughts, you control your reality. The people who shaped the world you live in did not get there by accident. They understood the game, how perception works, how influence can be wielded, and how fear can be controlled. But now you understand it too. And knowing how to play the game is your first step to mastering it. However, knowledge is just the beginning. It's what you do with that knowledge that will determine your path. Will you allow yourself to remain a passive observer, just another pawn in a system that thrives on your compliance? Or will you stand up, reclaim your power, and forge your own destiny? This is the choice that lies before you now. The road ahead will not be easy. There will be moments of doubt, challenges that test your resolve, and people who will try to pull you back into the old patterns of thinking. But remember, every moment of discomfort, every obstacle is a sign that you are growing, evolving, and becoming the person you were always meant to be. The most important step you can take right now is to act. Start today. Start by changing the way you think, speak, and behave. Begin with small shifts in your mindset, in your daily habits, and in how you interact with the world. Reclaim your power one step at a time. And as you do, share this journey with others. You are not alone in this awakening. There are millions of people out there who are still trapped in the illusion, still controlled by forces they don't understand. Be the light that guides them. Be the one who shows them that they too can take control of their minds and break free from the chains that bind them. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed these psychological tricks being used on you? How have they affected you in the past? And what will you do differently moving forward? Share your thoughts, your experiences, and let's start a conversation. Together, we can build a community of empowered individuals who no longer live in the shadows of manipulation, but walk in the light of true freedom. You are the master of your own fate. The time to take control is now. Will you choose to step into your power? The answer is in your hands.